This conversation is part of the Roman Twilight podcast. This podcast series includes the introduction of Roman history, my personal opinions and reflections on the collapse of Rome, and comparisons between the late Roman Empire and today's United States of America. This podcast is not an academic paper. It is a conversation. You might find differences with my opinions. We will agree on some things and disagree on others. My goal is to honestly express my personal thoughts and let my guests to express their honest thoughts. Therefore, help my listeners to make their own reflections and their own logical conclusions. The following is a conversation with Curtis Clay, an ancient numismatist of Harlan J. Burke Limited Company. Curtis is a titan of the antique coin world. He is one of the best, and probably the best, living expert on ancient Roman coins. He was graduated at Princeton with a degree in classics, and later wrote a master's thesis at Oxford on coinage of Septimius Severus. In 1974, in Berlin, Curtis collaborated with the great Roman historian Andrea Elfodis on his works. Curtis has presented papers at a number of international numismatic congresses and symposia, and wrote articles for many scholarly journals. As a Roman history fan and a Roman coin collector myself, it is my honor and privilege to have the chance to interview Curtis. And now, my dear friends, let's begin our today's journey through the layers of ancient Rome with Curtis Clay. Hi, Curtis. I'm curious why you entered the antique coin business.
As a child, I was a collector of first stamps that I inherited a collection from my family, and then minerals, and then I started in coins. Started with American coins, looking through circulation and so on. And then I would get foreign coins from my grandfather, who was a doctor and went to conferences in Europe and so on. He'd bring back coins. And I started Latin in 9th grade, and then I began collecting ancient coins and Roman coins. And the reason settled on the Severan period was there's still a lot of history on the coins. The style is quite naturalistic, and the coins are common. You still get a nice silver coin of over 50% silver, which looks nice in silver. It's not debased like the later ones. And you still have, alongside the silver and gold coins, you still have bronze coins, the sestertius and the middle bronzes, which are large coins, which I always particularly liked. But especially the Severan silver coins are very, very common and very cheap in nice condition, so you can get a good collection with very little outlay.
How long have you been into the antique coin business?
I started collecting when I was, as I say, about in 6th or 7th grade, maybe late 1950s. And I've been a collector for ever since. And I started working here in 1994, so I've been here about 25 years.
What do you think about the debasement of the Severan dynasty, the debasement of the Roman currency?
One of the major thing one could say on the Severans is that the Roman emperors introduced the double denomination in the Antoninianus, which had only 1.5 times the silver of the denarius, so it was an inflationary denomination. And that was introduced by Caracalla in 215 AD, just at the end of his reign. He was killed in 217.
As we're talking about the Severan dynasty, as from my knowledge, I know at the beginning of the Severan dynasty, the Roman coinage, like denarius, normal coins in circulation, they have silver purity of like 50%, right?
Something about that, yeah. Yeah, that's correct.
Something like 50%.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
And how about at the end of the Severan dynasty, like Tundraf El Gablis? So what's the situation like?
It's just gone down a little bit, but not really so much that you can notice it. But these questions have been investigated, and we can find articles and books giving you very exact, people have begun drilling into the edges of coins so that they can measure the composition of the coin right through, whereas if you do it on the edge, you get enriched silvering, and you get a misleading result if you just analyze the silver on the surface of a coin. You have to go deeper into the coin. And that has been done and for hundreds of coins, so we now know a lot about that, and the results have been quite different from what had been thought before. It's really an emerging discipline now. Yeah. But I don't know the details exactly which years the declines took place.
Yeah, so it's a slow process, right?
Yeah, it's a slow process, yeah. Yeah.
During the crisis of the 3rd century, the Roman coins only contains like 5% of silver.
Right. That's correct. It went down to below 5% silver under Claudius and Claudius II, one of the low points. And it was reformed by Aurelian especially, making a coin with more silver, up to 5% silver in it.
I'm just curious, after the reign of Aurelian, the silver content in the Roman coins, did they ever increase, or did they remain at 5%, or they decreased even more?
Diocletian introduced a good silver coin again, the siliqua, and that was struck in good silver under the 4 tetrarchs, and then much less under Constantine the Great, but it was revived again in the late 4th century, and so you have a decent silver coin. They're scarce, but they're obviously part of the circulating currency. So they're genuine coins. And then the other bronze coins are introduced too, with, again, that's a very difficult question, the relationship between the denominations of these, the gold coins, the silver coins, and the bronze coins.
So they basically introduced new currency because the debasement was too severe.
Right. That's correct.
All right. Thanks, Curtis.
You're welcome.
If you enjoyed my conversation with Curtis and want to ask him questions about ancient Roman coins or any questions related to antique coins in general, you can contact him through his email, curtis@hjbltd.com. curtis@hjbltd.com. And now, dear friends, let's return to our journey through the layers of ancient Rome. Talking about the Severan dynasty. The Severan dynasty was the turning point of the Roman Empire. Begins from there, Rome turns into decline. After the rule of the Severans, Rome falls into military anarchy, which is known as the crisis of the 3rd century. The inflation went out of control. A plague was raging. Rome got attacked by all her enemies at the same time. Endless civil wars. Several imperial provinces declared independence from the Roman authority. The empire almost collapsed. And after that, Rome's best days are gone forever. It was the beginning of the end, the storm before the storm. There was one crucial thing happened during the Severan dynasty, the beginning of the fast debasement of Roman currencies, which was what I talked with Curtis earlier. The government spending was too high, especially the spending on the military. To make up the unhealthy spending, the Roman government continuously decreased the silver coinage in the Roman coins to enable to make more to put into circulation. It was like a junkie gets hooked into taking drugs. Once you start it and gets used to it, it will be extremely difficult to stop. After almost 100 years, during the crisis of the 3rd century, Roman coin silver coinage dropped from more than 50% to less than 5%. When a gigantic commercial empire doesn't have a functioning and stable currency, then good luck on that. You're screwed. Now, look at today's America. We're in the middle of a similar process. In 1970, President Nixon canceled the US dollar's gold standard. From that point on, the Federal Reserve was able to print whatever amount of money they want, without any restrictions. Naturally, the inflation speeded up, and the national debt became a problem. Especially starts from Bush Jr.'s presidency. Today, the US economy is only $23 trillion in total, but the US national debt is more than $30 trillion. It's a ticking time bomb. A bomb powerful enough to annihilate a global empire. After the COVID pandemic hits, things became even worse. The inflation totally went out of control. More than 40% of the dollar in circulation were printed after the beginning of the pandemic. According to Federal Reserve's official data, last year the dollar's inflation rate was 7%, the highest in 40 years. But do you believe that? Anyway, I don't. Just look at the price increase of our daily spending. 15% is more of a believable number. And it's just the beginning of the world ride. It's certain that in following years, the inflation of the US dollar will keep getting worse. Earlier this year, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and a number of oil-producing countries in Central Asia announced they're giving up on US dollar and start using the Chinese currency yuan to trade oil. Reserve banks around the world are also replacing their US dollar reserves to the Chinese yuan. We're possibly entering a hyperinflation that could kick the dollar off the stage of history. It's really sad for me to see America is getting into a similar dilemma that Rome went through during the 3rd century. Because I love America. This is the civilization that I enjoyed. Now, let's look back to the Roman history again. At the end of the 3rd century, a tough, talented general called Aurelian became the Roman emperor. Under his incredible leadership, Rome crushed all her enemies, stopped inflation, and alleviated the internal conflicts. Aurelian saved the Roman Empire from the brink of collapse, restored order for the Roman people. I sincerely hope in the upcoming years, some miracle could happen, and America could meet her own Aurelian, a mighty, virtuous leader that could solve all the problems like magic. God bless America, and hope luck could be on America's side this time. Thanks for listening to this episode. Support the Roman Twilight podcast. Please check out my contact information in the description. And now, let me leave you some words from Sidney Harris. History repeats itself, but in such cunning disguise that we never detect the resemblance until the damage is done. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you next time.